Welcome to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live stream for October 28th, 2021. We are back with Raya Group, RYAH, on the CSE. Greg Wagner, the CEO. Greg, welcome back.
Thanks, Jack. Mr. Marks, I'm glad to be here again. It's been a few weeks. I'm glad to be here with some exciting news.
Fantastic. And again, for anybody that's brand new, who's going to be watching this video, I don't know, 3 months from now, whatever, the purpose of our live stream is to bring you those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential, companies going after massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities that are at a key inflection point and with multiple catalysts in place to ignite that increase in shareholder value. We've had already 9 stocks in the last 18 plus months that are up between 1,000 and 5,000%. You see some of them scrolling down below, and we're going to find out if Raya is going to be that next, 10 bagger plus maybe. We haven't had a 100 bagger yet, so there is still that possibility, Greg.
That's the plan.
So with that said, I want to talk about I think the idea is we're going to be talking about the acquisition you just announced of Omni. And then we'll kind of, actually, I think what we should do is maybe we should just do a quick refresher for anybody that may be new. Tell them, what's Raya all about, and then we'll talk about Omni.
Thanks, Jack. I think that's important. There might be some new members here. Let me spend a few minutes talking about who we are. And this has been a journey over the last 5 years. And we've finally found our niche. I like to call ourselves, Jack, a device and data story. We are a suite of IoT devices. We're a digital care platform designed to capture complex data points so that doctors and clinics and even regulators can determine the ideal customized and personalized dosing regimens for plant-based medicine. So we're not a device company. We're not a data analytics company. We're both. We actually capture captive patient dosing data with our suite of IoT devices. Our goal is to be completely agnostic to the delivery type, whether it's transdermal, whether it's inhalation, whether it's tincture, and eventually become completely agnostic to what type of medicine that gets put in our devices. We're a non-medicine touching entity. We partner with medicine handling partners who put their medicine in our cartridges or packages and distribute to their client network. So really quick, Jack, there's a couple of competitive moats so the audience understands how different Raya is from a device company or a cannabis company or a med tech company. We have 4 clear competitive moats that differentiate ourselves from most of our peers. Number 1, like I said, this is a device and data story. We are collecting captive patient dosing data with our devices in a real-time manner, all on a HIPAA-compliant cloud, by the way. Secondly, we own all of our IP. We are not licensing any of our IP from anybody else. We own all the schematics, hardware, and all of the software is developed in-house. Very important for our audience to know that because a lot of our peers don't do that. Number 3, and probably one of the most important competitive moats, is that this company is not a cannabis company. This is a med tech story. We are not married to cannabis, although it's an important part of our ecosystem. We are agnostic to the type of medicine that goes in our devices. And when we talk a little bit later, Jack, about what that means in terms of the exploding nutraceutical market and the aggressive increase in psilocybin and psychedelic research happening, we are keenly positioned for all 3 verticals with our current ecosystem. And finally, the 4th competitive moat is that this is a medical device story. That is a very lonely road. Being a medical device company or medically inspired company or a certified medical device company allows this company to have eventually statutory insurance reimbursement in select countries for our devices, which means that patients and our doctors become less price sensitive to our devices as a medical device certification allows for insurance. We only know of 2 competitors or peers in the whole world that have global aspirations to be a medical device company as we do. But most importantly, within that medical device mandate and that medical device aspiration, Jack, we will be the only company in the world in plant-based medicine technology that will have both hardware and software certified as a medical device. Think about that. Our software, our mobile applications, our back-end solution, and our hardware are considered medical devices once we complete our certifications. So, and a couple of quick wins before we get into the Omni deal. We have been selected to partake in one of the world's largest clinical trials ever to be conducted in cannabis out of the United Kingdom. It's such a large trial, Jack, that we created a customized mobile application on the App Store and Google Play just for this trial, with hundreds of APIs going back and forth directly to the clinic's EHR system to provide them with real-time feedback for this gigantic clinical trial. That is what we're looking to do at scale at a global level. Number two, we have received what we believe is the world's first patent ever granted in artificial intelligence and plant-based medicine analytics. And that is the catalyst for us to eventually become an enterprise data solution. My aspirations, Jack, is to eventually give all of our devices away and collect that data, interpret that data at scale, and monetize that data. Until then, our devices will pay for our aspirations as we move forward. And finally, we own one of the largest privately owned databases in plant-based medicine with over 360,000 patients or users, providing millions of points of structured and unstructured data every day into one of our applications. And as we marry that application with our captive patient dosing data, the enterprise data solution will come to fruition. And we would expect by 2025, about 50% of our revenues to come from data analytics and not just devices. So that's, I think, a good recap, Jack, on where we are, who we are, and where we're going. Before I get into the Omni deal, is there any questions or comments that you have?
No, I just, well, actually, no, I do have a we talked about it before, but we'll kind of recap, which is like, what's the size? I think the first question is people want to know is what's the size of the market opportunities that you're going after here?
You're looking at multiple 100 billion plus markets, right? So we're looking at the nutraceutical market. You're looking at IoT device market. You're looking at obviously the plant-based medicine cannabis market, and you're looking at psilocybin market. All of these cross-reference into a one theme, is that we actually penetrate all of these. So, you know, we don't like to keep ourselves bound by certain markets, but these are 100 billion plus markets. And we're one of the only few that actually can penetrate all of these in some instance with meaning.
Okay. And by the way, and of course, anybody watching this video, we had a demo that your colleague did a couple of weeks ago. That's yeah. On our YouTube channel. People can actually see these devices in action.
Absolutely. And I recommend people to look at this because you'll be able to understand the marriage between hardware and firmware and software, the complexity, and from a patient's point of view on how they use these devices. These devices are completely controlled by mobile applications that we build in-house. They turn on the device, they turn off the device, and in certain instances, when a patient reaches a dosing limit, the app shuts off the device so they can't overdose. And with our QR code technology, it actually downloads the entire lab results of the medicine the patient is intaking, so it mitigates illicit products from going in our devices. No QR code, the app doesn't turn on a device. So we're providing safety, data, and helping close that data gap. We actually don't want to help close the data gap, actually. We want to lead the market in closing the data gap in plant-based medicine. Okay. By helping doctors understand how different strains or formulations affect different demographics at different temperatures. Let's talk about cannabis for a quick second.
So when we're talking about plant-based, mm-hmm. So we're talking about cannabis, but also that includes psychedelics, right? We're talking about mushrooms, psilocybin, all that stuff.
Correct. Anything that has a boiling point that's achievable that will release the appropriate molecules needed to medicate a patient, or any sort of formulation that has the right viscosity or density or molecule size that can go through the skin transdermally or topically, we're there. We can do it. So again, we're completely agnostic to the medicine type. We work with our partners to develop their formulations so they work in our devices so they can collect the data. So if you look at cannabis, for example, Jack, a doctor can look at things like what was the difference between the harvest date of a strain and the dosing date? Did it affect the demographic differently? We're talking about massive amount of data that they can unpack so that they can create those customized, personalized dosing regimens that everyone's trying to chase. And that's the goal for us. We're here to provide data.
So, I mean, I think the takeaway is that, you're not, because I think sometimes investors might be confusing and they think you're a cannabis. You're not a cannabis company. You're in the drug development business. You're a tool for drug development companies who want to develop, drugs based on plant-based medicine, whether it's cannabis, psychedelics, whatever. And then you could also expand into other areas which are not even, traditional, nutraceuticals, etc.
Exactly. I mean, we're building our own nutraceutical line. Like I said before, for controlled substances, for Schedule I drugs, we don't touch medicine. We make no allusions to that. We're not formulation experts. We're very good at creating devices and the software around that. But for nutraceuticals, we decided to take our own destiny in our own hands and developed a line of nutraceutical patches that coincide with our smart patch ecosystem. And essentially, Jack, the smart patch is basically a patch with a brain on top of it that has a Bluetooth antenna and a heating element, which essentially could allow you to turn on and off your dosing on your shoulder with your iPhone. That's never been done.
What kind of medicines? What kind of stuff?
From the nutraceutical perspective, we have 3 lines we're formulating. We're looking at a caffeine energy patch line to hopefully supply with a interested pharmaceutical chain in the South. The caffeine energy patch is designed to help, for example, truck drivers who go on long routes. They drink tons of coffee and they go through these pharmaceutical chain routes and they stop a lot to take coffee breaks because they have to go to the bathroom because they digested the coffee. And that costs hundreds, if not thousands of dollars every time they take a stop. Now, what if we told you that we can create a transdermal or topical solution that can boost with heating, and it can actually increase the intake of caffeine without going through the digestive system? I got to tell you, we didn't come up with that idea. Someone came to us, a potential partner. So that's one of the products. The other one's an immunity patch, which involves elements of vitamin D, vitamin C, for those who
also Greg, Uber drivers. There you go. Not just truck drivers. There's a whole massive car sharing economy that could use this.
Gamers, Jack, gamers. There's a lot of gamers that get crazy.
They can't. It's right. We have companies in the esports business, and these guys, they can't. They're playing. I don't know, what is it, Call of Duty or whatever it is, CS. I don't even.
They don't want to run away.
I mean, it's a tournament. There $1 million is at stake.
There is so much opportunity on the nutraceutical line. Nutraceutical lines are exploding. We're also looking at potential partnerships on berberine, which is an interesting nutraceutical with one of the leading scientists up north in Canada. We're looking at obviously a CBD balance line. So the wonderful thing about the smart patch ecosystem is that you can actually program it to work. You set it and forget it. So let's say, for example, Jack.
Oh, Greg, I think we should mention one more thing.
Yeah.
One of the big problems with traditional nutraceuticals, whether it's like, generally the capsules, pills, whatever it is, the problem with that is vitamins, those things, they really never go into your body because they don't go because they basically they don't go into the digest. What you know what I'm talking about, right? They don't. Yeah. It never gets into the bloodstream. Whereas yours goes in.
What you're describing is bioavailability. So there are different ranges of bioavailability. On the lower end is ingestion, where it has to go through the stomach and the kidneys and potentially the liver and what happens there. A lot of that gets passed and doesn't get absorbed. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have inhalation, vapor inhalation, which is highly bioavailable, but sometimes it's invasive. You don't want kids inhaling vapor quite often for medicinal purposes. In the middle or upper echelon is transdermal. Transdermal is that sweet spot where it's not invasive like inhalation, where some of the geriatrics or pediatrics don't want to do that, but it's better than ingestion because it doesn't go through the digestive system, which can cause problems. So it is a sweet spot that we've been focusing on for 2 years, and now we're at a place now we can launch this thing. And on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you've got the smart pen, which will be coming out in about 2 quarters. That actually is a sublingual, which sublingual is a combination, Jack, of both, in the bloodstream, underneath, and through digestion. So it's somewhere between, sort of full digestion like a pill and the transdermal patch. But again, our goal is to be agnostic to how it gets into the body.
Okay, but the key thing is you're able, with your technology, you're able to control and monitor the delivery of all these, whether they're nutraceuticals, drugs, etc.
Correct.
Okay.
And further to that, Raya MD will allow doctors to prescribe on a dashboard which device and which medicine they want their patients to intake. And when the patient opens their Raya app, they'll see the recommendation or prescription. And if they accept that, ultimately the app will lock the device according to the doctor's recommendation. You're talking about total remote dosing solutions here. That is groundbreaking stuff. And our guys in the back end are working extremely hard to push out these innovations and really help close the gap between what doctors are trying to do is, for example, administer medicine in milligrams, and what patients are going to be doing, which is inhalation in milliliters, and closing all those conversions out and making those barriers to entry into this space eliminated. And that's what we're doing. We're closing not only the data gap, but the doctor-patient gap here.
So should we talk about the Omni acquisition?
Absolutely. Again, this is a proposed acquisition. A letter of intent was submitted to Omni Medical Services, and we're really excited about this. Don't believe this has ever been done before. The last time we talked, Jack, I talked to you about the fact that 80% of our revenues will be coming from Europe, because Europe as a continent as a whole is medically focused as a culture in plant-based medicine, and they are federally homogenous in terms of the regulation. They don't have state-by-state bifurcation, and we have a very good business development team, with ex-Pfizer executives, ex-J&J executives, contacting doctors and clinics to penetrate this market in the U.S. as we see the regulatory environment starting to shift toward wider adoption toward plant-based medicine. This acquisition completely accelerates the U.S. strategy. And make no mistake, the U.S. strategy is by far the largest plant-based medical market in the world, by far. I think it's a $24 billion market projected by 2025. And what we have done with Omni, our partners, this is more of a partnership than an acquisition from my point of view, because they provide just as much quality to this symbiotic relationship as Raya does. This will actually accelerate us on a national scale to conduct research trials through Omni using our devices nationally. And that is groundbreaking stuff. So who is Omni? Omni is a multi-state medical online telehealth and cannabis clinic solution. They are a research and certifications company focused on treating patients with cannabis or plant-based medicine. They are a non-cannabis touching entity. Essentially, they will onboard a patient, conduct DNA testing to see what their compatibility is to cannabis, recommend the cannabis, give them a medical cannabis card, and send them on their way to a dispensary to obtain the appropriate, obviously, medication, and then come back to their doctor for review. This is made up of a suite of board certified physicians. Jack, this is a real company. They provide not only complete telehealth solutions across the United States, but they do have physical presence in 5 states and soon to be 7, Michigan, Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois. They're focusing on North Carolina and South Carolina, and more to expand. Jack, this is a revenue generating company. They've been consistently generating revenue. Right now, their run rate is about $460,000 a year. They have really no bricks and mortars, a small rental space that they conduct. Most of the certified physicians are 1099s, and it's an add-on service that these physicians pass on to their patients. Their goal, Jack, is to move to a $1 million mark annually by this time next year with our run rate and with our combined presence with Raya. It is a 20,000 active patient network, and they've already served 30,000 patients to date. As I mentioned, is run by 2 principals and 12 board certified physicians, and they do intend to grow. Omni is a HIPAA compliant platform that conducts a full range of patient onboarding, from DNA testing, doctor training, research, clinical trials, clinical studies, and obviously advancement in plant-based medicine technologies. So Jack, this is a real company, revenue generating company, been around for over 10 years. They know what we're doing. We love the management team there, also the board of directors there. And we see this as a catalyst to bring Raya devices into 20,000 active patients.
Okay. So that's basically the idea. Is this is how you're going to get the devices into this market with this.
That's part of the plan.
It's going to turbocharge the whole business, basically.
That's the plan. So it unites Raya's device and data analytics solution with a 20,000 patient network, and that's symbiotic. You know, Omni is going to be helping Raya develop its portfolio of products to be suitable to all sorts of different types of patient demographics. Now, let's face it, not every single Omni patient is going to get a device in their hand, but the goal is, when we develop these clinical trials together, those clinical trials will be involving the Omni patients or new patients that both of us can recruit, and using device and data analytics to control the dosing, to monitor the dosing, and provide the feedback so they can conduct the titration.
How big do you see this as being, like, immediately accretive to revenues? Like how much do you think you can generate, like, in the first, I don't know, let's call it first 6 months? Maybe is there any integration, like you need to catch up, or can you hit the ground running and start, generating, basically 1 + 1 = 5 type of deal here?
Good question. So we do think 1 + 1 = 3, 4, or 5 in this case, because we are going to accelerate what we call a research grant strategy. We are going to be seeking funding, federal funding, state funding, at scale, through applications that involve Omni running the trials using dose control, dose measuring devices like the Raya solution. When you put devices with the obviously the research story, and show that you can control and monitor the dosing, the grant applications become much more compelling. So, Jack, excuse my French, there's a shit ton of money out there in grants. There's one state in the Midwest, I'm not going to bring it up because I don't want people to go chasing it, that's offering $20 million to go and find and do research in plant-based medicine. $20 million, one grant. And that's upfront money. So, if we get a portion of that, and the Omni guys are experts at applying and navigating through the grant application process, creating the protocols, having the right licenses, bringing in Raya to validate the protocol and the grants, that is how we start to really scale up, by obtaining federal and state grants and having a competitive advantage, a real advantage, and giving the grant providers the reason to select Omni and Raya together. We are accelerating grant funding at scale in the United States. The United States is the largest provider of grants in the world for plant-based medicine. In the last 18 years, Jack, they provided $1.4 billion in grants for research purposes for plant-based medicine. $1 billion alone came from the NIH. So this is I wouldn't say a business, but this is actually a strategy that we will develop, we will perfect, and we will scale it. So when we do say 1 + 1 = 3, yes, because it's not just the revenues Omni's bringing in from the patient network with onboarding patients and consulting patients. The grant strategy is a national strategy that will give us a competitive advantage to really grab some money and make some very exciting, very big clinical studies in the United States. Now, the other competitive advantage that we have is that we are looking, with Omni's partnership, again, it's a partnership, we are looking together to create a national strategy where we can obtain through partnerships DEA licensed plant-based medicine. Now, there are only a few licensed DEA licensed growers in the United States, very few, counted on one hand, Jack. But the goal is that we can obtain through partnerships that consistent plant that can go across state lines. That is the only flower that can freely move across state lines. It's DEA certified plant. With our national ecosystem and Omni's national patient network and doctor network, you've got the components to create a federal or national interoperable clinical trial framework that can go. A clinical trial can go from 5,000 to 100,000 to 300,000 if we do it right. Right. So once you nationalize things, once you can actually freely move cannabis around, and you have an interoperable framework where Omni can pull in clinics from all over the United States using our ecosystem, that's game changing. That has never been done before, and that's the long game. In addition, one of the other reasons why we combined forces is because once a company receives a certain amount of assets, 50 million, and they're also considered a publicly listed company, that allows us to have certain exemptions in terms of reporting, and actually will probably help us fast track our grants and applications. So HB 21 exemption, which I have no business talking about, that should be Dr. Ryan Lake and the medical director at Omni, will allow us to fast track basically our ability to obtain grants by having that 50 million asset number and being a public company, which we already are. So we're moving toward this H2B1 exemption plan as well, which will further separate us from the pack. So that's the Raya Omni plan in a nutshell. Now let's talk a little bit about how we're going to do this transaction, how we're contemplating this transaction. And before anyone panics, relax. This isn't going to be an overly dilutive process. It's not going to be an overly drain on anyone's cash reserves. That's not the goal. The goal is to combine forces to get HB 21 exemption. The goal is to combine forces to get the DEA federal strategy going, and combine forces to accelerate the grant strategy that I just talked about. This is not designed to hurt Raya. It is not designed for Omni to cash out. They have no intentions of going anywhere. This is designed to create scale and leverage in a manner that's not going to hurt either company. We're going to conduct this transaction in a way that is materially non-dilutive to our shareholders, and in a way that's materially not a cash drain. And if that means we have to stretch out, the payment cycles or whatever we agree on, we're very comfortable with our partners at Omni that we'll come up with something very amenable that maximize shareholder value. So it accelerates instantly a U.S. strategy with a transaction that will be non-harmful, non-dilutive, and designed to maximize shareholder value. Omni they will continue to run independently. We don't know how to run clinics, they do. And we will continue to run our product and offerings independently. It's when we bring the clinical trials and the patients together with the devices, that's how we're going to coordinate. But again, this is how we're going to do this. Obviously, we've been getting a lot of calls from investors who are extremely excited about this story. We're getting calls from partners who believe that this is the most sensible thing they've seen from Raya in quite a while. Our business development team is very excited about this. It gives them a leg up to start to platform off of this and start to expand more discussions with other clinics. Obviously, Omni's board is completely on board, and my job is to make sure that the logic I've just passed on to this community, to our investors, gets appropriately passed on to our board of directors, and we actually conduct a formal evaluation and we get this done.
Okay, Greg, we get a couple of questions. Oh, sure. We have one more. We want to do one more slide, or
that's it? No, that's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go. We got a bunch of questions here.
Sure.
Okay, so in terms of the devices, James is asking who pays for the devices
between Omni and Raya.
In general,
Yeah.
when you do these trials and all that, or
It's a good
Is there any
question.
insurance reimbursement or any, what happens?
Good question. So the goal is for the grants to materially fund the purchase and use of the devices through different mechanisms, through active CTP codes. So either through Omni's acquisition of the grants or a partnership between the both. The goal is to get the devices into patients' hands by using those grants to fund parts of these trials, which include the product.
Okay, here's a really interesting question. Mark is asking, have you been approached by any pharma companies about developing potential preventative solutions for epilepsy with cannabinoid-based consistent doses, with your platform?
So we know that ADHD and epilepsy is a common and popular indication for kids for pediatrics through using THC or CBD strains, and we have partnerships around the world that we're working on to develop formulations. Well, they're going to be developed formulations on the patch itself. THC patches would be better for pediatrics, ADHD, and epilepsy. The interesting thing about the patch is that if you have a THC formulation and the kid is having an episode, remember the boosting capability of the patch will actually, by heating and warming up that patch through a control program on the app, will increase open the pores of the skin and activate molecules and will increase bioavailability. So for epilepsy, that's the perfect IoT device is to have the ability to do a constant release, and then when it's needed to boost that. But we're not talking to big pharma or pharmaceutical companies at the moment on this specifically. We're talking to our distribution partners in Europe and the United Kingdom to find ways to advance this through clinical trials.
Okay, Simon's asking, will Raya devices be sold to Omni's patient network? So I think you kind of...
Correct. Yes, and again, there, as we move toward a global medical device mandate, and again, like I said, we should be the only company in the world to have both software and hardware to be certified as a medical device. We will start to look at MDSAP, medical device standard order procedure for FDA. That would mean FDA cleared, not FDA approved. But then you could look at things like Blue Cross Blue Shield potentially kicking in for reimbursement there. It really depends on the country. So in Germany, statutory reimbursement for devices that are medically certified is common. Other parts of Europe is quite common. Up in Canada is probably partial reimbursement, and the United States as well. So we're working with our friends at Omni to refine the strategy in terms of reimbursement. But the goal is to really grab that grant money and make this work. Okay,
somebody wants to, I guess, do a demo. Is there a Raya app on the Apple Store that's up and running? Can they do? How can they give this a spin?
Yes, there is. I think you could look up Raya Health or Raya Health Tracker on the Apple App Store and Google Play. You will need a device. Unfortunately, these are clinical solutions, clinical devices, and we don't sell them to individuals or on e-commerce. This is delivered to clinics and distribution partners who have patients. So you could take a look and take a spin, but you would only get so far without the device, because it requires you to have a Bluetooth connectivity with the device and scan a QR code. But you can still look at and you could look at the demos on the WSR, because the demos go through the entire portfolio, including all of our mobile applications. Each device has its own mobile application. So we encourage you to look online on WSR, look at our website, RYAHgroup.com. Plenty of collateral to look at to get the full feel of the application.
Okay, Nell's asking, what's going on with the OTC trading of the shares?
It's a work in progress. As you know, we're a Canadian listed company. We are working toward DTC eligibility right now. And then ultimately, once we obtain that, we'll be moving toward an OTC QB strategy. We also have a lot of interest in uplisting or cross-listing onto the LSE in London eventually, sometime next year. As I mentioned before, a whole bunch of our revenues will be coming out of the European continent, which includes the United Kingdom, and we want to align our capital markets footprint with our product offering. But OTCQB is on the agenda. We are getting a lot of calls on that. We understand people want to buy the stock, and it's sometimes tricky to do so on the CSE. We're focused on it, and it's on my mind every day.
When is Raya going to be profitable? And I guess what is the revenue expectation? I don't know. Revenue's 2 years out. What numbers do you want to give out?
I think 2 years out, Jack, 24 months. We're looking at between 4.5 and 7 million, especially with the Omni acquisition. That's a much easier number to now obtain, with the US becoming a more captive audience now that we have this footprint. And then we're looking at probably 16 million the year after that. Our UK clinical trial is kicking off. They've purchased devices from us. They've purchased an initial order of cartridges, 10,000 cartridges. We are starting to see the market open up after 15 months of COVID problems, which really limited the company's ability to, and the clinic's ability to have space in universities to conduct the appropriate testing needed to conduct these trials. That's all behind us now. So we're seeing in 24 months easily, in the end of 12 months, a profitable run rate. Now, our burn rate is very small. We're still in the 70,000 monthly burn rate range. We're keeping things light. Omni keeps things light. Their EBITDA is about 40%. And we intend to stay nimble until the revenues allow us to expand appropriately.
Okay, and of course, I mean the business you're in, the multiple, the valuations of these companies could be, I don't know, 20x revenues, 30. The numbers could be really phenomenal.
Absolutely. I mean, for the most part, Jack, our margins are 50% with 100% markup for the most part. So, yeah. And then as we start to be able to monetize data, it's a heck of a lot easier to make money on software than moving devices all around the world. Now we have this balanced approach where we're making money on creating customized applications that is supplementing, which is a surprise, that is supplementing our device and delivery capabilities. So we are a software company and a hardware company, and we're bringing in revenues on both. Actually, right now, our software revenues are exceeding our hardware revenues.
Okay. A couple more questions before we wrap up. James is asking, any device supply issues, with the chip shortages and all that, I guess.
Very good question.
Where are the devices manufactured?
The devices, the Raya inhaler is manufactured in China, in Shenzhen, China. Again, we own all of the IP. We have all the schematics, so we can always pick that up and move wherever we want. And the patches are being looked at in 2 different locations. We obviously are mindful of mitigating concentration risk. We have seen mild friction in our MCUs, our processors for the smart inhaler, but these are tiny little circuit. These are not the ones that you would find in an automobile. We went from something like $2. This is a $2 part that went from $2 to $4 or $5. This isn't a part that is going to break the bank. Our guys in China are very good. They keep an eye on that market. We think we've turned the table there, but again, it's not a material part, nor is it a part that's going to disappear on us.
Okay. How many patients are in the UK trials that you have?
The UK trial just kicked off with the initial order. They're going through what they call the pre-trial phase right now, but we do anticipate, their target is between 50 and 100,000. But it's more than that. In year 3 of this 5-year trial, the initial results of this pain study will be submitted to the NHS, the National Health System there. And if the NHS determines that this trial was effective in treating chronic pain, Raya would be potentially exposed to an additional 7 million chronic pain patients in the United Kingdom. 7 million. Because we're inside the study, they would have to be selecting Raya as part of a wider framework as part of this expansion if they decide to do that. So it's much more than the study, and we're looking to do that and replicate that model with our partners in the UK and Europe, all around the world.
Okay. let's wrap up on this question. Okay, so the wealthy lion. What can we expect in the next 2 months? This is the question we always like to ask at the end. So major milestones, revenues, any hurdles?
Number one, we expect to get ISO 1345 medical device certification for our and MDSAP medical device standard audit device certification for the inhaler. Again, making us the only hardware and software certification in the world. We expect to be launching officially RYAH Wellness. We've already obtained a legal entity. We're developing an e-commerce site, and we're developing 3 patch lines in the next 2 to 3 months where we control our own destiny. We'll have our patches and we'll have our brains. Of course, RYAH
and that can go to market right away. The nutraceutical stuff, you can be in the market right away.
It's not a controlled substance. It can go right away. We're not making any claims on this stuff. So right now we're making sure that this is not a gimmick, that these patches actually penetrate the skin and they create an efficacy of some kind. So we're taking our reputation very seriously here, and we need to make sure that these patches work. You could also be expecting RYAH MD coming out in the next 90 days, where doctors can virtually prescribe remotely medicines, and it will affect the patient's application and device accordingly. So lots to do. Health Canada Class 2 medical device certification is also on the horizon. It's completely dependent on the ISO certificate. Also, TGA Australia medical device certification just around the corner at the beginning of the next year. So lots going on in the medical device space, lots going on in innovations, and obviously the Omni merger will keep this company quite busy for the time being.
Okay, Greg, on that note, I want to thank you for the update, and we look forward to getting more details on when the Omni deal closes and any other news coming up.
Awesome, Jack. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining our live stream today. We'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.